Hello everybody! Thank you for listening to Bubble Radio. My name is Canon, your host, and in this episode I spoke with my friend Jasmin Moore, who I met in high school back in Australia like 10 years ago, I believe. And she currently is a dietitian as well as an entrepreneur, and in her business she actually helps other dietitians build their online business. So in this talk, we talk about three main things. One is, specifics of what she does as a dietitian as well as an entrepreneur. Sorry, I really can't say the word entrepreneur. I don't know how to say it. Please forgive me. And also, second is we talk about intuitive eating. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but you will get to hear what it is about in a second if you haven't. And number three, we talk about what is called Amenorrhea, which is a medical condition associated with an eating disorder. So, I'm sure that everybody can really benefit from this episode. You don't necessarily have to be like a powerlifter or a gym goer or anything. Everybody eats. And, eating is just everybody's lifestyle. So I'm sure that anyone can really benefit and take some, you can get some really good takeaway message from this episode. So without further ado, this is Jasmin Moore. Let's go. Bubble Radio. Okay, so today we have Jasmin Moore on the show. She is a business mentor for dietitians and also has a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics from Griffith University, Australia. She also appears on Instagram as Jasmin Moore Dietitian, creating valuable content on diet and business. Thank you so much for making the time to be on the show today.
Of course. No, thank you so much for having me, Canon.
Okay, so today, Jasmin and I, we actually met in high school on the Gold Coast, and it's been like 6 years since we graduated. So maybe fill me with the things that you've been up to since you graduated from high school.
It just seems so long ago. I can't believe it. 6 years. That's insane. So since then, I pretty much jumped straight into uni and started my bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics. And I did that for 4 years and then finished and graduated in 2018 as a dietitian. And from then, so that was 2 years ago now, pretty much exactly actually, since I graduated mid-year. And since then, what I've really been doing is building my own empire, I suppose you could call it, just in terms of working as my own dietitian entrepreneur, seeing clients all over the world, which has just been amazing. And I really love my job as a dietitian. So I've been predominantly doing a lot of dietetic work and been dropping into the space as a business mentor as well, which has been so much fun. So I've had a lot of just fun, a lot of fun over the past 6 years, really. So yeah, that's where I am now.
Yeah, because I can see that you're having a lot of fun even through like Instagram and stuff like that. And it's really cool to see like friends from high school doing all different things and which it just makes me I just have a few questions on what you're doing. I see that you throw in a lot of words with, dietitian, business mentor, Australian Institute of Dietitians, dietitian nutritionist and stuff like that. Maybe for those who are not aware of who you are and what you are doing, how would you simply describe what you do?
Yeah, so I'll put it into the two categories since I still have the two businesses really. So part of me and what I do is I'm a dietitian or a nutritionist. And what I do is I work in the non-diet industry, and I'll get into what that means in a second because that's another skill in itself. But what I do is help a lot of female coaches and entrepreneurs to be able to ditch the dieting mentality, heal their relationship with food. A lot of the time it's overcoming binge eating and emotional eating and having that great relationship with food, body and self so they can really thrive in their own businesses. So that's where I was focusing mainly as a dietitian. And then in my other business that I have at the moment, I'm also a business mentor for dietitians to be able to help them to get onto the online space to build and grow their business and use social media as the platform. So I have, two businesses that I'm doing at the moment, and both are so much fun with the, what it means to be a non-diet dietitian. So it's a very non-traditional approach to dietetics. Usually when you think of dietitian, even you think of very weight-centric, will help people lose weight, and a lot of the focus is on weight and health. Whereas a non-diet dietitian, what our main focus is really on not so much weight and removing the weight conversation, so it really is neutral, and rather what we do is look at the behavior. So looking at really health and what that means in terms of the relationship with food, our relationship with body and health, and helping people become more connected to their own body's wisdom of telling us, you know, when, what, and how much to eat, rather than following a diet. So I would never really tell anyone to go on a diet. I would never really help anyone to move into the direction of a pursuit for weight loss. So it's really all about having that great relationship with food and body, so you're able to trust your body more than anything to get to its most healthy balanced weight, simply by focusing on the behaviors and less about the number on the scale. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. So it's more of not what you eat. It's more of how you eat and how people are driven to eat something.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we still focus on the what you eat, but a lot of it is around the psychology and behaviors which really are driving those food choices, which is where a lot of the problems in our world really come from when it comes to different types of diseases and, you know, issues when it comes to our eating. It's less about the food and more around our reactions and how we perceive food.
Right. And no, it's actually very, very interesting for me as well. And also, because you mentioned the two businesses, I'm wondering about the second business. Why did you try to get into the more of the business side of trying to teach these dietitians or how to get into the, you know, creating content and exposing themselves on social media? What was the drive for you to get into that side of it?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of it was really from my own personal experience since doing the whole business side of things myself for more than 2 years now, and really seeing a lot of growth and a lot of sustainable success from it. And I am really passionate about just business in general. I really see business as like this vehicle, like a playground almost, where we really just can have fun with it. We can grow and explore. It's an opportunity to create. And for me, there was never really any other option. I really knew I wanted to run a business from the get-go. And I just love it so much. And I've really been able to have a lot of success with what I've been doing in my own business. And I really do believe that dietitians have such an important role to play in our world. And at the moment, particularly in Australia, it's really hard for dietitians to be able to find work sustainably. And it's sad because there is so many people that really are looking for nutritional advice. From a lot of the time it is on the online space, so people are going and influencers on Instagram. So there's particularly people out there that need dietetic support that are on a lot of the time on Instagram looking at probably, you know, influencers, fitness, what do you call them? Inspos, Fitspos, that's it. Or whoever it might be for this advice, when a lot of the time there is a lot of unsafe and harmful advice online. So to be able to help dietitians to be able to give them another platform to be able to see that this is something that really can work, it can be really profitable, it can be really accessible for so many people over the world that you can reach as well. It just makes so much sense to get more dietitians on the online space too. And we do definitely have such a big important role to play. So I'm really passionate about moving the whole profession forward into that space. That's something that, as you know, a technology driven world, I think it's something that we're ready and prepared for as well. So it just, for me, it makes a lot of sense, and it's just a lot of fun. It was something that was just the next stage of everything, I suppose.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people are always telling us young people that, you know, going on your phone too much is not good, or using the internet is, you know, brainwashing us and stuff like that. But if you really think about it realistically, if you don't have that kind of platform, then it's you're missing out on a huge opportunity, right? Even a business opportunity. And I can understand that you're trying to take advantage of that. And I think that's really, really important mindset to have. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, like I said, we live in the day and age where everything is going online now. So why not, if people are there and people are wanting help, why not become more accessible, use it as a marketing platform? And that way we get to live that laptop lifestyle as well, and just be able to serve people from all over the world that otherwise wouldn't be able to reach and able to have those life-changing transformations. So yeah, exactly, 100%.
Yeah. And in terms of like a pandemic like this, it's probably good that you have that online, right? Because it's not affecting you as much. Definitely, that's another point.
Exactly. And I think this has really allowed us to see that, again, we can be online. That there's importance to being online in terms of just having that security when it comes to, we do have to, if another pandemic or something comes about, we have that option to keep our businesses going, to keep serving people.
Definitely. So just bringing back the topic a little bit, you also talk about intuitive eating. Is that different to non-diet dietitian? Sorry, it makes no sense. But can you clarify what, for those that are not aware of what intuitive eating is? I've heard of mindful eating. Would that be different to intuitive eating or?
Yeah, so really, really good question. So if you are a non-diet dietitian, likely you are practicing intuitive eating, which is a level A evidence-based framework and approach to be able to work with your clients to have a better relationship with food and body. So it really is the framework and a type of approach that we would use as a non-diet dietitian. And really great point that you brought up about the mindful eating. So mindful eating is something that can be used as a component and a tool with intuitive eating, but they are really different. So intuitive eating is the process of being able to reconnect with your body's own internal wisdom to be able to tell you what to want and how much to eat. A lot of it really is coming back to trusting your own body to be able to understand and listen and honor your body's hunger and fullness cues, to be able to know how to nourish your body in ways that isn't it just about looking at what we should and shouldn't do and putting a judgmental framework around that and saying that we need to have more self-control and self-discipline. And rather it's taking ourselves out of that cognitive way of thinking about food and really more about connecting back within ourselves and listening to our own body's wants and needs to be able to drive those decisions.
Okay. That's very, very important because I think that everything like that gets, like, everybody seems to forget that because I know that being in the fitness community, I don't know, you probably heard of If It Fits Your Macros, and people run with that diet. And that, I guess, takes away that intuitive eating strategy. So, no, I think it's really, really important to actually, look at the basics of, like, why you are eating this and not just look at what you're eating. No, I think it's
100%. And what we find is that the more that people stick to these diets, no matter what it is, it really is overriding their body's own sense of understanding of, if for example, with macros or with intermittent fasting or whatever it might be, if we are having restrictions imposed on us about when we can eat and what we can eat, often our bodies, in a naturally healthy and psychologically healthy person, we're naturally going to want to rebel from that because it's not something that's imposing on us, telling us what to do, instead of just listening to our body and going with the flow almost and being mindful about that as well.
Yeah. So we're not really strictly, following a certain diet, really. Yeah. Okay. So it's pretty much like a mindset.
That's a really good way to put it. It is pretty much like a mindset. And you're not following any diet. There is no actual rules. It is just about learning how to be more in tune with your body so you can pick up on certain cues about when you are hungry, what you are hungry for, and how to honor that most appropriately. So a lot of it goes into, what to do when we're, feeling different emotions come up. And a lot of time people will eat out of boredom or because of feeling stressed or emotional. So a lot of it lines with that as well. So being able to cope better with our emotions without using food. There's a lot to it, but I really like how it is almost pretty much more like a mindset than it is a diet or anything like that.
And this intuitive eating, I've only actually heard of this maybe a few years back, and I've done some research on this, and the word intuitive eating first got given this term in 1995. And thinking it was 25 years ago, it doesn't seem like such a long time ago. I feel like it's very recent that it's being used. Yeah. And what do you think, sorry, this is like out of the questions that I've sent you, but what do you think drove this word to be created or, even to be recognized?
Really good question. And so it was developed in 1995 by two dietitians, and they were just, your regular dietitians as well. And they kind of they were realizing within their practice that their clients would do really well when it comes to following a diet. And if they were just given something, all they had to do was follow it, and then they would lose weight and it was fine. And once they the clients stopped seeing the dietitians and they stopped following the plan, it felt like they couldn't stick to it, and everything, the weight would pile back on and everything.
Right.
And the dietitians realized that, okay, there's got to be something wrong with this method, because yes, I mean, it works when they're sticking to a plan, but we're human at the end of the day, and we can't just be eating off a plan forever. There needs to be some flexibility and something deeper that's happening here. And they were starting to do a lot of research into a whole bunch of different things, and we're realizing that the only way to be able to develop healthy habits and actually have and stay at and get to your most healthy balanced weight was to really let go of a really weight-centric focus and drive towards wanting to have weight loss, and rather become more intuitive, because people were losing that sense of connection with food, and they felt like they really ultimately couldn't trust themselves around food. So it is bringing that trust back into the equation and using our intuition to be able to guide us. So that was really how it came about. They noticed that diets didn't work, and we have so much more research even now since then to show that. And yeah, it really does all come back to just a holistic, intuitive, and quite logical and rational approach to food.
A lot of people, maybe some of your clients, work better in like those structured diet.
No, so I've never found that anyone I've ever worked with works better in a structured diet, because what usually happens is that, to begin with, people get really excited about going on a diet, and they might find that to begin with they do stick to the diet and it's easy, they all have to do is follow a plan, and it seems like it works. And then for some people it does work, but then there comes a point and when it doesn't work anymore, because people find it's either too restrictive, it's unsustainable, it's too expensive, it's inflexible, whatever it might be. It's just not realistic for the person anymore. So a lot of the time the diet will work, and that having that rigidity and structure works until it doesn't, because then you might go away on holidays, or you might get sick, or something might happen that means that you're out of your routine. So by becoming more of an intuitive eater, to begin with, a lot of people can get quite scared and overwhelmed particularly if they don't have anybody going through the process with them, because it can feel like that they're just letting the floodgates open and eating everything in sight, and it's just a recipe for disaster in terms of their everything like that. So it can seem overwhelming, and it also can seem fairly backwards to the people who haven't done the proper education to really understand and help themselves through the process. But ultimately, we have the evidence to support it that diets just as a whole do not work, and the more rigid and structured it is, the more likely we are to rebel from that naturally, simply because it isn't in alignment with what our body's wants and needs really are.
No, I think it's great that you look at the basics of it. I'd say this again, but the human behavioral component of it. And I don't know. I feel like we all want to feel good about our bodies and what we're putting in our mouth and stuff like that. But do you think like this mindset, if taken too far, is possibly damaging? Because, for example, instead of being like, I haven't had the time, but it's okay, I will do something to improve, you start to think, well, I haven't had the time to eat, and I shouldn't feel guilty about it, so I will keep eating whatever and eating junk or junk food or processed food every day. Like, what is the... I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, do you think that it could be taken too far in a way? That instead of like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a change, they'd be like, I'm going to stop doing everything because I know that I shouldn't be stressed about diet overall.
Really good question, and this comes up all the time, because naturally, logically, we've been told that, okay, we need to have that kind of discipline and restriction and the kind of barriers in place for us to be able to navigate how to eat. So I can understand when you're thinking about, okay, so if we just remove all that and we're thinking, okay, we shouldn't be stressed and we should be more relaxed about eating, when does it kind of stop, and can it sort of derail us and our progress towards health? Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah.
So often that's a really common misconception to have, because what actually happens is, to begin with, if you're somebody that is trying to go onto this intuitive eating journey, there's 10 principles with intuitive eating, and there's different stages that you go through. So it wouldn't be wise to just say, okay, I'm going to eat intuitively now, I'm just going to relax around food, and then just give yourself permission to eat everything inside. Because most often, and likely what's going to happen, is that you will eat everything inside. And if you haven't looked at a lot of the underlying work and the moral components and attachments that we have to food, you can then go and think, okay, I've done this. I mean, why did I do that? Like, I'm such a pig. Like, I can't believe I just ate all this junk food, and like, I just feel so crap now, and I need to go do this. And it's really easy just to get back into that spiral and just feel like you're not really looking after yourself. But what's really important to remember is that even if we do start there, let's just, for example, and we open the floodgates and we're like, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to eat everything, anything I want. What a lot of people will end up doing anyway, naturally, particularly if they've been restricting for so long and they've labeled foods as good as bad, as good and bad, and that they can't have certain foods, naturally there is this deprivation mindset that's going on, and that they will just naturally want to eat these foods that have been off limits for so long, because it's like you finally told the child that they can have a cookie, and now it's like, oh my goodness, well, this is such a special occasion. There's a lot of urgency around it, and people will want to just eat everything they can because they never know when they're going to get that opportunity again. So there's a lot of psychology around that. So naturally people will tend to eat a lot of things at first that they would probably consider off limits, simply just because you're giving them that permission, or they're giving themselves that permission. But what you find over time, it's different for everyone, but under the guidance of like when I've been working with my clients, that may happen initially, but it's not long until they kind of kick in the rest of that intuitive behavior that we've been working on. And they kind of realize, you know what, do I really want this? They actually can give themselves that moment to be mindful about their eating choices, and they know they can go eat the whole bag of cookies if they want, or the pop of chocolate, but they ask themselves, okay, am I really hungry for this right now? Do I really want this? How is this going to make me feel? Is there something else that I could do right now or eat right now that's going to make me feel more fulfilled, make me feel more sustained, or do I really want the chocolate? And they start to actually get really inquisitive with themselves, and that's where that mindful eating component comes in. Maybe, for example, they do want to go and have, that cookie, and so then they will, but instead of just eating it mindlessly and being distracted and doing so many other things at once, they'll really sit down with it. They'll eat it really slowly, really mindfully, bring a lot of sensory awareness to the eating experience, and they might only eat half the cookie and might say, you know what, this isn't actually as satisfying as I initially thought it was, or maybe I don't actually want all the rest right now, I'm going to put it away. So that's where a lot of that perceived self-control comes in, where it's not necessarily control anymore, it's more freedom to be able to have the choice and be mindful about that choice, to be able to make those decisions. So for example, I have clients that felt like they could never have cake in the house, because if they did, they would just binge on it, and it was just going to be this terrible loathing of guilt, and then they have to punish themselves for exercise the next day, which a lot of people can really relate to. And what she did when we worked through the process and everything, now she can have cake on the table in her house whenever she wants. She knows it's there. She can walk past it, and she doesn't feel like there's any temptation. She doesn't feel like there's any need for it. She even said to me, she's like, you know what, I don't even think I like cake anymore. And it's not because we've put any limitations or restrictions that she can't have it, but what we've actually done is allowed to her to say, you know what, you can have it whenever you want. And it's funny, you think it would be like, okay, but if we do that, we're gonna lose control, and we're just gonna get really, really overweight. But the reality is, when we, again, going back to the human behavior psychology, when we give ourselves that permission, things don't seem as special or urgent and necessary to have in our life anymore. It's there. We can have it whenever we want. We can have it, and when we give ourselves that permission, we can tune into other questions like, do we really want it? Is it really serving me? Do I want it now or later? Is there something else I can do with my life right now? Like, there's so many things that we can actually allow ourselves to ask and get curious about, because there's no judgment there anymore. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I kind of it's making sense to me why you classify yourself as a non-diet dietitian, because it's, it's not really about the actual diet. It's about how you, and it's like, I feel like you're almost like a psychologist in a way, because you're actually like trying to change the perception of food, and that is like a huge thing, right? Like changing people's beliefs on how they see certain things.
And that's where it comes down to. We forget that it's our relationship with food that is actually the driving force of the food choices. So a lot of time we focus on what foods we need to cut out, what foods we need to include, and we focus on these things. And although that's helpful to some degree, I mean, it's how we think about the food in our bodies as well that is going to determine the food choices that we have. So if we can get into the habit of having a great relationship with food, seeing food as neutral, not as like junk food or health food or bad food or good food, but it is just food. There's no judgment there. We feel neutral about the way that we look, or we're gravitating towards more body confidence. Then again, there's less noise happening around us, and we can just choose food based on simply what our intuition is telling us, because none of that noise is there anymore.
Right. But yeah, I feel like you got to have some sort of education on food, right? About knowledge on food, because because I don't know, people might actually think that processed food might be helpful. So it's just like, like, I think it's really, some sort of education needs to be there on kind of know what that food is doing to you as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's definitely one of the principles that we talk about in intuitive eating. But funnily enough, that's the very last principle. So before we actually looking at the nutrition and what the food actually is and learning about the education side of that, which is important, like you said, we go through so many things first, like looking at body image, making peace with food, rejecting diet culture, which is a really huge one in itself. There's so many things more around that psychology with food and our relationship with our body, and also exercise and stress and everything else before we actually get to the nutrition education. Because if we start to look at the nutrition education side of things too soon, what can happen is that those facts can become more rules. And what we're trying to do is remove all the rules as much as we possibly can. Otherwise, it becomes more of these restrictions, and that completely compromises the whole process that you can have by becoming an intuitive eater. So yes, nutrition education is important and making sure it's individualized for that person's needs. But first we need to really remove almost need to unlearn a lot of what we learn about nutrition, which a lot of the time is very incorrect. There's a lot of incorrect information online as well. So a lot of the time we are removing a lot of judgment. We're sort of relearning the whole process of what it means to have a healthy diet for that person's individual needs.
And, you know, diet in itself is more of like a long-term process as well. So maybe like a structured eating program or something like that could be good for short-term. But, you know, just being healthy and, you know, eating healthier is more of like a long-term process. So I kind of, definitely do understand where you're coming from. And also just about the things that you said about the misleading information on the internet. I see tons of information about diet and stuff like that. That must be frustrating for you if you, yeah, it must be frustrating for you, because it frustrates me seeing fitness posts that is pretty misleading. Like, it might be right, but you need the other background information around it for you to understand it properly. So like things that, you know, the information like that, it kind of does piss me off a little bit as well. So it must be frustrating for you.
I totally can relate to that. And that's a big reason why I wanted to do this, and again, get more dietitians on this space as well, because there's a lot of people that think just because maybe they've lost weight that means that they're a weight loss coach, or because they eat food and they're a vegan, for example, then they can give vegan advice. And we have to remember that nutrition is a science, and it is very individualized at the end of the day. And there's so much that I see that just it's very disappointing. It's disappointing, and it's very disheartening that it's out there, but it definitely fuels my fire to make sure that the right information is getting across, and I can serve as many people as I can, so people feel safe and they don't feel like they are confused with what to eat. Because I think that's, at the end of the day, a big problem that a lot of people have. They just don't know maybe what exactly is right and wrong when it comes to what to eat for them and their needs anymore.
Like, what do you do for, like, personally for you? Like, even though you understand the information and you know what you want to get across to the audience, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're interpreting in the right way that you want them to interpret, right? Like, what are some of the things that you're really careful about when you're making posts like this about diet?
So at the end of the day, it's really important to make sure that the approach is coming off in a way that people understand, and it is very individualized. When I do a lot of posts, when I was speaking more about the intuitive eating space, it was more about intuitive eating and looking at the principles. And as dietitians, we wouldn't ever tell somebody that they have to do this or have to do that without actually coming to see a dietitian to get that one-on-one support. So it's actually not something I've had to think about for a while, because we just naturally do and sort of know what and what not to say. But ultimately, if anyone's listening to this and really does care about their nutrition, then ultimately, yes, there's things that you can find online, but to get the right information, it would be definitely coming to see a dietitian. And that's what we sort of always do talk about all the time, that at the end of the day, nutrition is so individualized. You really need to be speaking to someone who's a professional to get the real rundown of what your body actually needs for you and your needs. Specifically, if you are doing a lot of, sporting performance and competitions and things like that, just anything and anywhere, everyone could use a dietitian in their life.
Yeah, because I feel like just even consuming information on the internet, we consume what is not necessarily what is like valid and reliable. We kind of consume convenient information, right? So it's like when a dietitian makes something like a super bold statement, like this is bad, like it's easier for us to consume because it's so simple and it's so convenient for us. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like yeah, it's kind of hard to consume information that is like, oh, it works for different people, so I don't know if it works for you. But but you actually want to get across a lot of information to the audience, but the audience is only, consuming information that is more convenient, that says this is bad, this is bad. Yeah, that's another like a hurdle that
It is. And a lot of the time as dietitians, particularly if you're signed up and registered with the Australian dietetic body, you can't use testimonials or anything either. So it makes it really difficult to be able to get your message across. And a lot of the time you do have to be general and you do have to be vague. And it depends on how you want to market it. So for a lot of my students that I'm working with, when it comes to the dietitian businesses, it's really getting clear on who your niche is and solving a specific problem. So that way we're not trying to ever get the message out to everyone, because a lot of the time it definitely does get drowned out when we're just trying to speak to everyone, we speak to no one. So what we're really looking at is niching down and getting really clear on the problem that we're solving, so that way the right people are going to hear it, are going to want to know more, and then want to sign up to us, because we are getting really clear and really specific on those specific things. For the most part, a lot of people either have a particular agenda, or it's just what they know when it comes to nutrition. So it's easy for them to say, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. And it definitely does make it hard just to know in terms of what we should do with our nutrition, let alone confuses how we should be approaching food and the language that we're using around our relationship with food as well.
Yeah, and I think it's really helpful that you're not only teaching the whole the intuitive eating lifestyle, but more of how to promote that as a nutrition coach. Because that is one powerful way to influence the whole, the diet, how people are eating in general. It's for you to coach the coaches on how to coach. Yeah, I think it's a very, very powerful way.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many ways that dietitians can really be of help, and it doesn't have to be intuitive eating, although that is my specialty. It can be ways in terms of, whether it be gut health or more of a cognitive focus, or women's health. There's so many different areas. We definitely need more dietitians online, because it is confusing.
Yeah, it's amazing though what you're doing. And also you actually focus a lot of your work for women, is that right? Yeah, what is the reason why you're focusing around women?
From that business perspective, and just personally, because I am a woman, it just makes it easy to be able to connect and relate to similar issues that women would be having around body image, and when it comes to nutrition and what they should and shouldn't be eating, particularly for entrepreneurial women and women who are, quote unquote successful. It's really easy for them to seem successful on the outside, but on the inside they don't even have their health together, or they're running around so much that they can't keep their or feel like their weight, they can't keep that under control. And a lot of the time that can bring up a lot of emotion, a lot of emotional eating and binge eating. And the whole process of entrepreneurialism is an emotional roller coaster, and there's a lot of growing pains. So for these particular women, and also on top of that too, when you have success looks like a certain way, which for a lot of people perceive thin bodies being a success, and people having the whole mental picture around that as well. So there's a lot that I work with women in that particular area. And not even on top of that, but there's also foods and typical behaviors that are either seen as feminine and masculine as well. So it's just really interesting to be able to explore all these different things around nutrition. But for me, in terms of my business and what resonates with me, being able to help women is just really aligned with me. Not to say that men need intuitive eating too. We all need intuitive eating, and even if it is, we have other different kind of nutrition needs on top of that as well. Just being able to have that sense of understanding and intuition with how to trust our own bodies to be able to nourish ourselves in the best way, I think is something that everyone needs and can benefit from.
Right, because so you're women, so you probably understand a lot more, and also the fact that women have different perceptions of eating. Is that right? Even just not even about eating, but about body image and stuff like that, which probably is not even easier, but it's probably helpful for you to help women, female clients.
And I could definitely help men too, and I have helped men with intuitive eating, but naturally it is something that women are more interested in, even just in the name intuitive eating. A lot of the time there's a lot of even women within the entrepreneurial spiritual space that kind of really connect with it as well. So yeah, naturally it's just sort of what has happened really, but we definitely need a lot more a lot more people just in general to be on board with the intuitive eating.
Yeah. So like, I think you touched on it a little bit already, but with the entrepreneurial women, what are some of the most prevalent problems that people come to consult you for?
Yeah, so a lot of the time it's for emotional and binge eating. So a lot of the time, like I said, entrepreneurship, there's a lot of growing pains, and it doesn't necessarily matter how successful somebody looks on the outside. It doesn't mean that their internal world and their day-by-day world looks great in terms of their nutritional health. And a lot of these people, because they do really value growth, they really value making impact, they understand how important it is to make sure that they're filling their cup up first and taking care of their own self-care and health to be able to make sure they can make that impact into the lives of their company or their clients as well. So it makes a lot of sense for them to be focusing on their health, even just a sense of being energized and just being able to function as best they can and show up as best that they can as well. So that's where, and just being entrepreneurial myself, it's something that I can really resonate with, just with a lot of ambitious and self-driven women. So these are the people that usually do really value and care and want to seek out that professional advice when it comes to their nutrition and health.
No, I think it's because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, because my parents are entrepreneurs themselves, and they kind of forget about the health is not in their priority. Like, I can tell you that. They're super busy, right? The health is like the last thing on their list. And I feel like people who come to you for help are making the time that, and they're really, 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 really strict on time as well. That they value health and eating is something, it sounds really like, it's a great thing, I think.
100%. It can go either way. So a lot of the time, and the women that I'm really looking to attract within that space are the ones that really do value that and have already sort of seen that that's important to them. But of course, there's the people that focus so much on, being busy and doing the work that their health, they put their health last. And it's not until later on they realize that they probably really should be focusing on that more. So it really is a balance of probably equal amounts of people that I see in both camps who either really do value their health and want to be able to look at it, or people that have probably neglected it for a long time and they've realized, okay, need to get on top of this sooner than later.
Yeah, and the health side of it probably does interfere with their business side of it as well, like looking at it long term.
Definitely.
Okay, so what are some of the mistakes that nutrition coaches make or dietitian make when they're trying to give advice to clients?
So when they're trying to give advice to clients, so looking at the actual dietetic practice or more about what they're doing within the online and business space?
Well, let's talk about it from an online business space perspective. I think we already touched on it a little bit, but if there's anything to add.
So a lot of the time, because dietitians, we come out of uni, we don't get really any specific business training. So a lot of the time we are just trying to help everyone, and we start posting really general things because there's so much that we do know. So we might post one day about IBS, we might post another day about eating disorders and something about this and this and this. And it just gets very confusing for a lot of people, not knowing that they don't have a specific niche or a specific specialty that people can know, like, and trust them for and come to them because creates that sense of sanctuary in their audience. So a lot of people within, a lot of dietitians, a lot of just coaches in general are very broad in who they're trying to speak to, which is definitely a problem. We need to be really specific with who we're talking to. Another thing I see is that a lot of people are either being too vague or trying to be too clever or too cute or fluffy or whatever it might be, instead of just being clear. And I think we all forget how that clarity over cleverness is just so powerful, and is something that we all need to be really aware of. So just being clear. A lot of the other problem that I see a lot of coaches have is not only do they not know how to market themselves effectively with particular copywriting skills, but also they don't have an offer. So the traditional approach to dietetics is that we just have an initial consultation and a follow-up and maybe a few follow-ups. But overall, it's just what I've found is that it doesn't give the clients enough transformational experience that they really need to be able to get from where they are to where they ultimately really want to be. So if we can be able to create more offers that are specific towards a certain client to solve specific problems, that way not only can we charge more, but we can make more impact as well. And I think that's truly what dietitians really care about. So if we can have a look at how we can better our practice that way, instead of just having one-off consultations here and there, and rather give them a whole experience, then I think that's another thing that a lot of dietitians can really be improving upon, and what I really love to help my dietitians with.
No, you make a very, very good point. So like one being information being too broad, the second one being everything is too vague because you're either trying to make your information fancy or things like that. And the third is more of like the practice side, or how you can, maximize your like how much you can get out of whatever you're doing. Does it sound right? Like 3 points, right?
100%.
Okay. Yeah, that's very, very interesting to me as well. So bringing the conversation forward a little bit, so Japan has dropped its state of emergency for the pandemic. And not just the fact that you gain weight, but then there comes the guilt side, I haven't gone to the gym, or I'm not eating like how I usually would. Like, what are some of the ways that you could help with this mental side of like coming out of quarantine, and also maybe touch on some tips of how you can get back on track with your diet?
Really, really good question. So many things I want to talk about here because I'm just so passionate about it. When it comes to looking at the fact that there's guilt attached to the weight, the best thing that you can do there is really question yourself about why that is there to begin with. Why is there any kind of negativity or judgment towards you gaining weight? What does that mean? What is the meaning that we've attached to that as individuals, but also as a society? And you'll find that it's quite a big thing to deconstruct, and that there's a whole lot of the culture that we are in is very driven by our profits on insecurities and vulnerabilities, particularly when it comes to the body shape and size that we have. And a lot of the time there is a lot of internalized fat phobia that we have as individuals because there is a lot of fear of gaining weight just in our culture as a whole. So the reason that we have that fear of gaining weight is because we put a lot of judgment towards it. So a lot of the time, if we gain weight, we think we're going to be less confident and we're going to be less attractive and we're going to be, less healthy. There's all these things that we think that being in a larger body means, when really there's actually so much to deconstruct around that and actually be able to question where that really comes from and how is that really serving you. So it's a very deep thing to dive into, but at the end of the day, there doesn't need to be guilt. I mean, if you've gained weight, so what at the end of the day, right? And I know that sounds really weird coming from a dietitian, I mean, at the end of the day, if you've gained weight, you're still the same person. You still have the same value. You still have so much to give into this world, and you're still great at the kind of work that you're able to do. Why are we so obsessed and concerned about the number on the scale? And if we're going back to the same routines that we were originally, where maybe we were a bit active and we weren't at home all the time, naturally you probably will find that without doing anything different to your normal routine, what it usually was, that you'll probably just go back to the weight that you were before putting on this weight. But then for some people, that might not happen as well, and you might not lose that weight. And we need to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, how much of a big deal is that? And if I'm focusing on the healthy behaviors and I'm doing what I can to be healthy, and all the results coming back saying that I'm healthy, does it matter that I'm now 5 kilos heavier on the scale? And I know that's a really easy thing said than done, particularly when there's a lot of shame in gaining weight. There's a lot of judgment and guilt that we attach to that. So it's definitely easier said than done, but that's where I would start. Does that make sense?
Do you blame society for this, for creating this fear of getting fat? Or is it because of how you take it or how you interpret it?
Well, that's a really good question. I think it does start with the diet industry, and, being part of the diet industry, I can really see that a lot of products, a lot of programs really are centered on people trying to lose weight and trying to do what they can to achieve this thin ideal. And a lot of it is profiting off our insecurities and vulnerabilities. And I don't, maybe, my good-hearted nature likes to think that maybe this does come from a good place, and that we really, we are a society that does think that being thin just is synonymous with being healthy. But I think there's a lot more than that, where there's a lot of, big brands and companies and just the diet industry in general that realizes that if they sell us something to lose weight and we try that diet for some time and it doesn't work, then naturally if they put enough fear into the system that it's a bad thing to be in a larger body and it's ideal to be in a thin body, there's enough push and there's enough drive for us to continue to go in this cycle almost of trying one thing, it doesn't work, trying something else, and continuing to put that blame on ourselves for not being strong enough or not being disciplined enough. In reality, it's really the fact that the diets in itself are flawed. They're not meant to actually work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be trying to search for the perfect diet, and there wouldn't be all these different ways of dieting and losing weight, because, again, it would just come back to us being able to trust in our bodies and be able to eat in accordance with what we had and how we know how to nourish ourselves. So it's a really big problem culturally that is happening. A lot of people are waking up to the fact that it's not okay anymore to be so blinded by the fact that diets don't work, and we need to be more recognizing of that, I think. Does that answer that question?
Definitely, yeah, it does. And just like I don't know, I know this is like a sensitive topic as well, but I feel like a lot of people are triggered every time they are exposed to some sort of insecurity, because I saw on the internet about Anytime Fitness tweetheads posted there was like a sign in front that was like flatten out the curve, which is about the pandemic, but then they crossed out the and wrote your, and then add the S on the end of the curve, so it's like flatten your curves. And like, you being Aussies, we like to play around a little bit and joke around a little bit, but I feel like a lot of people are triggered by that. And I don't know, it probably might have been, I have a feeling that you probably wouldn't have been taken in that way maybe 10 years ago. Like, no one would have paid attention to that. But then there's like this whole bashing about, about the Anytime Fitness now. And I don't know, I feel like fat shaming or anything like that will not go away 100%. So it's like, it's also how you interpret that information, and to like everything you pretty much said. Yeah, but I do feel like it is becoming more and more sensitive.
It's becoming more and more sensitive, and it is really interesting. So with that one in particular, I think there would have been people feeling insecure if they were to read something like that, particularly if they were in a larger body, and it's just that sort of reminder of guilt, how they should be thin. And I mean, for me myself, I've never really been in a large body, so I can only speak from my like lens of
me too,
thin privilege, I suppose you can call it. But at the end of the day, I think it is important to realize that, particularly as like health professionals, and we can see that thinness is again equated to health, that there's a lot more recognition now that even something like that, which can, just be obviously not probably having any kind of negative intentions at all, and people just trying to make fun of it. And again, it's about like, losing weight and getting healthy. But I think we need to be mindful of how that's coming across to certain people who would probably want to go to a gym, but there's a lot of stigma. And I don't know if you felt like this yourself, but I see and feel like there's a lot of pressure in a gym, particularly towards people in larger bodies, that it's great that everyone is going to a gym or, just trying to be active. But I think there's a lot of judgment towards people in larger bodies in general. I think a lot of people can, even in thin bodies, can feel insecure around gyms sometimes. So I think just by minimizing that sense of judgment is really important, just for all bodies in general.
Because it's like I also put out information as well, and just if I thought about who I might be offending, even though if I have no negative intentions, I don't know who I will be, offending. So it's kind of hard to put out information that doesn't offend everybody. It's just how I feel sometimes personally. And I do think about it every time I post something, like, oh, what if people misinterpret it in this way? What if people get offended even though I don't mean it to be this way? Like, it's becoming very, very hard to even put out information, So, do you feel that way?
And I think that particularly because this is getting a louder voice as well, and it's not so much just about, it's so much more than just about health at the moment. I think there's a lot of, it's a big thing. Like, it's not just intuitive eating, which is a framework, which is, the way that I really work and see it, but there is the intuitive eating side where it's a whole movement of people who are really anti-diet and anti-fat shaming. And I think these things are good, but you're right. It does make it difficult. It does make it difficult because you obviously don't want to offend anyone. And I think everyone always has the best intentions. It's just whether or not we're, what's the right word here? Whether or not we're understanding of all these different perspectives. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to always be keeping up with that. And I think as long as we're just trying our best we can, and we know that we have good intentions with it, sometimes that's all we can do. And if we're open to listening to different perspectives and, again, not getting on our high horse and getting our egos involved, I think, then yeah, it's great to be able to learn different perspectives as well.
Yeah, it's probably not very realistic to not offend everybody, like anybody out of your followers. Yeah, that's another mentality that I kind of need to have, because that puts me away from posting anything sometimes.
And at the end of the day, you're going to have followers that resonate with what you're about, and you're going to have your own approach to everything that you do. And if that's what you believe and that's where your values lie, then that's what you align with, and that's okay. Like there's no, you don't have to try and please everyone at the end of the day, and you're never, like you said, you're never going to be able to please everyone at the end of the day. So as long as you're really clear on your values and you're just promoting that, and that feels good for you, then I think that's what matters, as well as just being open to other people's perspectives and like learning about that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's whatever you want to, it's your life at the end of the day. So your values and what feels good, I think that's the most important thing.
And just like about the whole anti-fat shaming thing, and you're probably going to look at me like I'm stupid, but do you think like it might contribute to like the promotion of obesity, which is probably not a healthy thing to end up with? Like where do you draw the line there? Like, are you promoting that it's okay to, I don't know. I just wanted to ask you this.
Yeah, definitely. And I again, this is a completely open, safe, non-judgmental space. A lot of people have the same question. So I think it's a really great thing that you're asking this. And I think, again, it's a lot to unpack just within here in itself. But we have to remember that weight does not determine our health, and a lot of the time that's been the message. So if we're in a larger body and we're obese, naturally it's been considered, even just within the medical field as well, that that's an unhealthy thing. But what we need to remember is that obesity in itself, even though that's been deemed like such a big problem for so long, when you actually uncover, and we're having, like we said, intuitive eating is only like relatively new since 1995. So the more that we're doing studies and we're uncovering the fact that these diets aren't working and that they're actually contributing towards more weight gain and more unhealthy behaviors long-term and short-term, the more that we're realizing that, hang on a second, it's not actually our weight that determines our health, but rather the behaviors. Because we can be in a large body, we can be classified as on a BMI as obese and still be healthier than somebody that is in a normal weight range. And we probably have friends even that we can say like, they can eat whatever junk food that they want, and it doesn't seem like they ever gain weight. Yet you can have people that are in larger bodies, and naturally there's that stigma against them that they are unhealthy and that they are certain people and they eat a certain way simply because of their weight. So it's so much more complex and complicated. But just because people are in larger bodies and they're obese in the BMI scale does not mean in any way, shape or form that they are unhealthy. And that's something that's quite a big mindset shift to have, since we have been brought up thinking that that is what it is. But it is so much more complex. So it doesn't necessarily, the way that the approach works is that it's not there to promote obesity, it's there to promote health.
Right. No, that clicks with me. Yeah, because, and like you said earlier, we need to, like even me, like I need to unlearn that weight is, that the emotions that we have attached to weight. Because, you know, even just in high school, I remember you measuring your BMI and then reporting it to the teacher or whatever. I remember doing that in PE class, and then I remember always like hiding my BMI because I didn't want people to think I'm fat. And it's just like something that I've always been taught pretty much like naturally. So it's hard to unlearn that, and it's probably hard for you to teach people to unlearn that as well.
It is, and it's something that like a lot of people have been trying, you know, a lot of the clients I work with too have been trying for almost like at least 30 years, some of them, to try and lose weight because that's what they've been taught they need to do. But it's so relieving for them when they actually realize that, hey, it's actually not about just trying to lose weight. Like the pursuit of my life isn't about becoming, 10 kilos lighter. It's actually just about being healthier. And when you can let go of where, if that means you need to lose weight or gain weight or whatever that means, and just focus on the healthy behaviors, that's what we show up in like the blood test results where you don't necessarily lose weight, but you are so much healthier because you now have a great, more nourishing diet. Or perhaps it means that your mental health is so much better because instead of just focusing on the insecurity around what your body's doing. Rather, you're focusing on taking better self-care, you're nourishing yourself with the right foods and feeling really good about yourself. So it's definitely something that it is hard, and it's not something that I expect a lot of people to get straight away. And I expect there to be all these kind of questions and great questions that you're bringing up with. And I think your listeners would really appreciate you coming from the perspective of not knowing where I'm coming from, because it can be quite almost triggering, and it can be quite just really different, like really opposite in some ways. So I totally get that there's questions and there may be even confusion and so much more you want to be able to talk about this, because it's very opposite and very different. So I thank you for being like so open and honest with your questions.
Because I have a lot of friends. I do have friends here and there that are wondering why, like the exact same that I said, thing that I said. And also like people who are like raging because of that. It's like, oh, these like anti-fat shaming, just promoting, for people to have an excuse to be unhealthy and things like that. But then like just even from maybe like the 5-minute talk that you just gave, like I'm kind of like fully convinced about the other perspective of like trying to be healthier.
Yeah, and it is just about health. Like, we're not here and saying that everyone needs to gain weight, and everyone will naturally be at their most healthy and balanced weight when they're an intuitive eater. Maybe that means you lose weight. Maybe that means you stay the same. But we have to put our trust in our body, that our body is smart enough to be able, and it is like biologically wired to be at a weight that is genetically designed, which is 80% of what our weight is at the end of the day, genetically designed to be what's right for us. And that can mean different things for different people. So yeah, again, really great questions. And thank you so much for, again, having me on here and being so open to hear my perspectives on this as well, because it is important. It is all about just enhancing our health at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're just also making me question a lot about my life, but it's great. And also just touching on a little bit about the other end of the spectrum, about people who are over-exercising and under-eating. I believe a lot of my listeners are more leaning towards like the fitness-based, fitness. And on the very first episode of this podcast, I actually had an international level bikini fitness athlete. I don't know if you're aware of those athletes. It's more like the less muscular type of bodybuilding. And, she talks about how a lot of competitors suffers from psychological and physical problems during the preparation of this show, including herself. And one of the most prevalent problems that I've heard is amenorrhea. And I don't know, can you like maybe touch on what is that for those that are not aware of what it is, and what drives it? It's a big question.
100%. Really, really great question. And I think even that in itself, that's really interesting, because like your guest talked about, it is a very common thing. And it's interesting that is considered to be something that is healthy and trying to get to this like peak certain athletic look almost, and we look at that as something that is healthy, but we need to really be questioning how healthy is it really to our hormones, as well as just our relationship with food in general. I've had a lot of clients that have been in the same space, and they've done their bikini body competitions and everything like that, and then come out of it, and they completely have messed up so many things in terms of like metabolism and just relationship with food and the way that they feel and look about themselves as well. So it's something to definitely just be mindful of when entering that space, and to make sure that you're nourishing yourself enough, because a lot of those competitions don't really allow for that. But when it comes to amenorrhea, this is something that definitely is really prevalent in this space as well. And what that really means is the absence of menstruation. So if you've missed at least 3 menstrual periods in a row, that's classified as having amenorrhea. And same if you're a girl who hasn't begun menstruating by the age of 15. So that's what sort of amenorrhea is classed as. And there's different reasons why somebody might have amenorrhea. They can be hormonal imbalances. So, for example, if you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, any kind of thyroid issues, or pituitary tumors, or premature menopause. It can also be different lifestyle factors, like having a really low body weight, for example, or excessive exercise, and a lot of stress too. So all of these things can really impact on the way that our hormones function, and as a result can shut down our the ovulation and menstruation system.
Okay, so it's probably not only the competitors like that. It's probably professional athletes, and also just the people. What about people who are dieting too much, or eating too less, or not know how to diet? Do you think that's there's some people like that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So if you have an eating disorder, so particularly like bulimia or anorexia, it's likely that you may have amenorrhea too, just because of the low body weight. And if you're not nourishing yourself well enough as well, and you're not eating enough throughout the day and getting enough energy, that can definitely be a reason as to why you might suffer from amenorrhea as well. Definitely. So you don't have to be necessarily an athlete. You don't necessarily have to be, you could be anyone and really suffer with this as well.
Yeah. And what are some of like the long-term consequences with this? Are there any of that you know of? Or?
Yeah, mainly infertility. So if you don't ovulate and have your menstrual periods, you can't become pregnant. So that can be a real issue, particularly for somebody during those years where you're really wanting to start a family. It can be really tricky. Also, if you're somebody that has amenorrhea caused by low estrogen levels, you can also be at risk of osteoporosis as well, which is like that weakening of the bones, which isn't great in terms of just your structural integrity of your bones and prone to breakages and falls, and definitely something that we don't want to be faced with. So they're the biggest ones really, but definitely it can also just be just a lifestyle nuisance as well, knowing that you should be having this, and it's quite concerning for a lot of females too when they realize that they don't have their period for a second time, because that's something that should be happening in a healthy person.
It's probably hard because like even with athletes like this, they want to compete, right? Because that's their everything. But then if they forget to look at the health side, that eating like this is not always healthy. Do you think that it's possible for you to not like have amenorrhea? Because you do have to lose a lot of body fat, and it's extreme dieting as well.
It is. And I think it would depend on the kind of athlete you are. I think it would also depend if you're working with a sports dietitian that is really equipped to be able to make sure that you're getting the right nutrients and different macronutrients and all of that stuff as well. And that way you can guarantee that you're still eating well enough to make sure that you don't have amenorrhea. It really depends, I think, on the individual as well, like what's happening in their life, how they're tolerating stress, if they do have any eating disorder tendencies or any kind of family history of this happening before, if they have any other kind of medical conditions as well. Right. But if you are an athlete and you're competing at quite high levels, you really probably should be working with a sports dietitian anyway to make sure that doesn't happen, and to make sure also you're fueling for your performance the best that you possibly can, recovering, all of that as well. So I definitely think, yes, it's 100% possible not to get amenorrhea, but you want to be working with professionals to make sure that's the case.
Because I feel like a lot of anyone can be online coaches nowadays that can coach bikini fitness athletes, and that could potentially be very dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. Particularly if we're looking at athletes in that kind of sense as well. It is, I haven't come across anything to say that is something that is just healthy to do in general, just because of the psychological and the physical impact it can have on your body. It's not necessarily, you mean for that particular thing, you wouldn't have a sports dietitian involved. You wouldn't have a dietitian involved at all, because it would be pretty much going against probably what we'd say is a healthy thing to do for somebody. So in that sense, if you're talking about those kind of athletes, I don't know if it's possible. I think it would depend on the individual and where they're currently at, and maybe what kind of competition they're entering to determine how much body fat they lose and how quickly. But it's not necessarily something that I would support and can see as something that is healthy from a nutritional. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And we see all these pictures of these girls, and a lot of them do think that it's the ideal body composition. Like they're skinny, they have muscle, they're curvy. But looking into like the specific, diets and exercise and things like that, this may not necessarily be the healthiest option for you. And if this is not the perfect diet, and to maybe touch on a little bit, it's like a big holistic question, but touching on your framework of intuitive eating, what is the best way to reach that perfect diet?
So really good question. So it's important to let go of the notion of that there is a perfect diet, because again, it's going to be really different for everyone. So somebody who has an eating disorder, for example, has a very different perfect diet than somebody who is at a healthy weight and has very healthy behaviors. Different again to the person who is over 55, again different to the person who is doing a lot of sporting competitions, different again to the person that has PCOS. There could be so many different perfect diets depending on that individual's needs. So, and there's a lot of things that a lot of people would consider as unhealthy things to do for example, an eating disorder patient as compared to just a normal, quote unquote, like a normal healthy weight type of person as well. So again, it really is individualized at the end of the day. So part of what I help my dietitians, my clients achieve is just understanding there's no perfect diet, and that what we're really here to do is find the right diet that is synonymous with what it is that is going to be most healthy for them and their specific needs and goals.
Right. So bringing it, it all falls back to that really in the end is how you think about diets in general. Yeah, it's very
and it's all individualized. Like everyone has different life, different unique body, like everyone has different needs. So nutrition is very individualized.
Yeah. And also personally, do you do a lot of self-talk when you're eating, or like telling yourself certain things that could help people like do every single day, like people who wants to improve their health? Is there anything like that you can really tell yourself, really, like a phrase or like a sentence that might be able to help them in a way?
Right. Yeah, I understand now.
And it's probably a lot.
It's probably a lot. I'm just trying to think down to a phrase or a sentence that would be the most important thing. And I think a lot of it would be coming back to just how much your weight doesn't define your worth, and to be able to give yourself that permission to trust your body and to give that time and to be self-compassionate with yourself. I think a lot of people, when they're trying to be healthy, think, again, it's all about that discipline and self-control and rigidity. And it's a negative kind of like a force almost that we're not working with what we want. But I think at the end of the day, you can remind yourself you're allowed to eat what you want. And the more that you practice having that balance that doesn't come from external sources like diets and what you shouldn't be doing, and rather just remember that all food is is not off limits. You can have anything whenever you want, and practicing that mindful eating, practicing just asking yourself what's going to serve you best. I know this is much longer than just one sentence, but I think I would probably, in a nutshell, wrap it up as something like that if I was to remind and have something to not that I, go through that with myself, like I'm sort of past that stage, but if you're somebody who is interested in exploring this space, it would be just getting curious. I think even just to make it more practical, being curious with your food choices and why you think that certain things about certain foods, and where do these things come from, and where did you learn these from, and how is it helping you best. I think if we're looking at something practical, getting curious rather than non-judgmental around your food choices and behaviors and thoughts is a good place to start.
Yeah, and as you said earlier on in the interview, like on learning a lot of the things that you think is normal. And also, in order to do that, you kind of need to have an open mind, right? Because I feel like people are more like, even me, I'm probably like, processed foods are bad, but and if you're like really, really stuck on that belief, then it's really hard to let go of it. So like even having an open mind to learn about things and being curious, as you said, is probably really important too.
So important. And I can totally understand and empathize with people coming from, like, processed food has been deemed as such a bad thing for so long. Like it's just a thought pattern in itself. Like you just sort of know almost that packaged food is bad, but there comes a time and place where that's actually can be quite helpful, and it can really be part of a healthy diet. And we have to remember that the diet in itself, there's no one food that's good or bad, or that's going to make or break our diets or make us healthy or make us unhealthy. It is really looking at that holistic place as a whole. So when you speak to a dietitian, we do like diet histories and everything with you, we are never looking at or focusing on the one thing that you eat that is quote unquote bad or quote unquote good. Like it doesn't matter if you eat a chocolate bar and then a salad, like none of that, like that doesn't tell me anything really about how you eat. So what we really do is look over the entire week, and we sort of have a holistic picture around, okay, is there adequacy, is there regularity, is there variety, and we just sort of break it down. And you can totally be able to enjoy these foods that are packaged in your diet, and that doesn't necessarily compromise your whole health if you have it just, here and there. Different if you're having it all the time. Like, of course, if you're having packaged food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's the kind of, we've got to be realistic too. Pasta is packaged food, bread is packaged food. what am I looking at my counter here? Peanut butter is packaged food. Like, you know, there's so many things that we can actually look as processed. There's so many foods that are great for us that are processed. So we really need to just remove those labels of what these things mean and just start looking at it with a little bit more curiosity and open-mindedness. But of course, you need to be open to be able to do that. And if you can remember at the end of the day that we're all in the same team, we're all trying to move towards health, that this is just a different approach. And if people can realize that, maybe they can look back on their diet history and work out, wow, you know, I've been trying to do these diets, been trying to do like this excessive exercise and stuff for so long. It hasn't really been serving, like maybe it's worked, but it hasn't really sustainably been serving me, or maybe I don't feel the happiest from it. Maybe there's something else that could be an option for me. Then maybe that's something then that a lot of people, usually people get to that stage where they're kind of like, okay, I've tried everything. Why isn't this working for me? But then they go and realize that there's such thing as intuitive eating, and then they, never look back.
Just like intuitive eating, if you maybe follow that, I feel like it could be a really, really fun to approach diet, and maybe dieting might be like a fun thing for you. It sounds like it when you talk about it. So yeah.
Yeah, intuitive eating is really fun. It is just really getting back into, like, there's no rules with it. You can just have fun and experiment. Like, a lot of it is experimenting with what feels good for you. And maybe, cookies don't feel good for you anymore. It's like, okay, cool. Like, what does? Wow, kale sounds really good. Never thought that was going to happen. Or it might be the other way around. And now you're allowing yourself to have some cookies, like, you know, once a day or whatever it might be. And it just feels good to have that kind of fun and freedom back in your life. So it definitely doesn't mean that you're going to then, you know, just destroy the diet. It's going to turn all one way. It's just about, again, all about that balance in a just realistic way at the end of the day.
Yeah, you opened another door of my understanding about diet today.
I really thank you for the opening to receive it. I really appreciate that too.
Awesome. We're just coming up on time. So where can people reach you? Like, where can people follow your work? Maybe.
So my work, so really where you can follow me and contact me is Jasmin, so Jasmin, Moore, Moore, .dietitian, Dietian, and that's on Instagram. And I'm sure Canon will probably leave some kind of links and things everywhere. Perfect. So that's where I am on Instagram. You'll find that that's my main page. At the moment, it'll say that I'm a dietitian business mentor. But that's me. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you can see more about this intuitive eating process as well. But if it is something that you are 100% wanting to learn more about, or even if you are just interested about learning how to optimize your nutrition more, or having a better relationship with food, or having more of this balance, whatever it might be, the best thing you can do if you really are serious about it is just reach out to me, send me a DM, let me know that you've listened to this podcast, that you found this really interesting, or maybe you have some more questions. I'm more than happy to be just able to give you that non-judgmental space to be able to ask whatever you want and just have a discussion about it. And if you want to go further and get some support in how to actually start having that really realistic and healthy, balanced lifestyle and nutrition and diet, then I'm totally here for that as well. Just DM me and let me know.
Awesome. You haven't changed much from high school. You're such a kind person. And also, you're active on Facebook. You have a page for your nutrition space, right? Like a platform or on Facebook or group?
Yeah, so at the moment, because this is a very new transition that I'm heading into with the business platform, that's really my energy and focus is at the moment, just following with what feels really fun. But you can also go onto Facebook and follow my business page, which would be Intuitive Eating for Female Coaches and Entrepreneurs. So there's going to be more information about the intuitive eating approach as well, which I'll be coming back to shortly and sharing more information about that on that page too. So that's also somewhere where you can visit.
Awesome. I will definitely link both of those in the description as well. Well, thank you for some really great insights, Jasmin.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, thank you so much for your really great questions. I think your audience is going to get so much value out of this, and for you being so open to receiving too. So thank you so much for having me and being such a great host.
Yay. Okay. Thank you very much. And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and you know the deal. If you did, make sure you share it with your friends, either that, whether that be on social media, or, you can talk to your friends and tell them this is an awesome podcast as well. So, we're also on social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and what else? Like TikTok? I'm not uploading that much on there, but it's still there, okay? So, make sure you check us out on those. Any advice is really helpful, like what kind of guests that you would like to hear from on the show, what I could do better on the show, all of those things. Feel free to message me so I can improve. Okay, Thank you so much. And stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good day. Bye bye.
Baba Radio.